this hearing and written comments to the interim director of the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. I would like to emphasize that actually no decisions will be made this evening on this permit application. Please sign in, as everyone has, if they can, on the sheets and indicate whether or not they wish to speak, if you have not already done so. Please take a copy of the Mining Act of 1971 for reference during this hearing. I'd like to introduce the staff for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. David Miller is the State Mining Engineer. Judy Wayner is the Assistant Mining Specialist. Matt Gant is our Regional Engineer in the Winston-Salem Regional Office. Brandon Wise is the Environmental Specialist in the Winston-Salem Regional Office. Seth Tipley is the Environmental Specialist for the Winston Regional Office, and Toby Vincent is the Section Chief of the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment related to the mining permit application for the operation of a crushed stone quarry located off of Clark Road near the town of Snow Camp in Alamance County. The hearing will be conducted in the following way. I will have an explanation of the actions for which this permit is required by the hearing officer. There will be an explanation of the permit procedures as set forth in the Mining Act of 1971 by the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. And number 3 will be public comment. Comment, statements, data, and other information may be submitted in writing prior to or during the hearing, or may be presented orally at the hearing. Persons desiring to speak will indicate their intent at the time of registration for the hearing, so that all persons desiring to speak may do so. Lengthy statements may be limited at the discretion of the hearing officer. Right now I'm looking at 40 people have asked to speak. So we're going to be basically talking about 3 minutes per person. If they finish early, that's fine, but everybody's going to be cut off at 3 minutes because we want to get everybody done. The key thing about it is if you've got written comments, it's very helpful. If you don't get a chance to say your entire speech, the key thing about it is if you give us the comments and lay them up here, they'll be included in the written comments. Cross-examination persons presenting testimony will not be allowed. However, the hearing officer, I can ask questions for clarification. The applicant may make a short presentation at the end of the hearing and may be available for individual group discussions after the hearing is there. So the owner, or the applicant, the whole thing is, I do not know if the applicant is or is not going to speak at the end of the hearing. If they do say they're going to speak, they get to speak. If they don't, that's it. Okay. He indicated he was not. Okay. So we'll proceed with that. Okay. The proceedings for this public mining hearing will remain open for a period of 10 days following this for additional written comments, arguments, and statements. Let me start out with the explanation of the action for which a mining permit is required. The applicant proposes to operate a crushed stone quarry located off Clark Road in Alamance County. The applicant has submitted an erosion sedimentation control plan for the mine site intended to protect the surrounding areas and water courses. A reclamation plan has also been submitted to the department for review concerning the restoration of this area to a useful land use once the mining is terminated. A copy of this information may be viewed here on the side on the wall there after the hearing is completed. Copies of the application material may also be viewed on request after tonight at the Dimler Winston-Salem Regional Office and the Raleigh Central Office. I would now like to defer to David Miller, the State Mining Specialist with Dimler, for a brief explanation of the mining permit procedures as set forth in the Mining Act of 1971.
Dr. Taylor stated, my name is David Miller. My title is the State Mining Engineer for the Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources, better known as Dimler. I'd like to take this moment to thank Principal Mark Gould for the use of this facility, and I'd like to thank Alamance County for helping facilitate this. My job and that of the other members of the staff is to review the applicant for a mining permit as it relates to the Mining Act of 1971. There are copies of the Act. If you did not receive one, please look in the sign-up area. I'd The hearing record will remain open for a period up to 10 days from tonight, or the 17th of December. This gives those individuals that were unable to attend an opportunity to comment. You may also think of something else that you would like to add to your comments made tonight. This provides you an opportunity to do so. Now that the public hearing has been held on this application, the department has 30 days review clock. The 30-day period starts after the hearing tonight. Should the department request additional information from the applicant, the 30-day clock would start over upon the department's receipt of all the requested information. Such a process will continue until the department's questions have been answered and a decision is made on the applicant. If there's no questions, I will turn the program back to Dr. Taylor.
Comments should be limited to those directly related to the 7 denial criteria listed in General Statute 74-51 of the Mining Act of 1971. The department considers and makes the decision to grant or deny a mining permit application. These criteria are the ones were explained in detail to you a few minutes ago by the state mining engineer. Again, if you have not yet signed the attendance sheet, please do so. This will provide us with an accurate attendance record and will let us know who wishes to speak at the hearing tonight. We don't want to miss anyone. In light of the number of people that have indicated their desire to present comments on this application, I will limit the oral comments to 3 minutes per person in order to give everyone a chance to speak. The first commenter will be State Representative Dennis Riddell for Riddle.
I'm grateful for the NCDQ that they responded favorably to our County Commissioner's request for a public hearing on this matter. I'm very concerned that the proposed quarry operation to be operated by Alamance Aggregates LLC has yet to be sufficiently vetted by any governing body. I believe there are serious matters related to public health, air quality, water quality, and more that have yet to be investigated. Subsequently, my remarks will center on my request recently submitted to NCDEQ to require an individual National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, permit for the crushed stone quarry in Snowcamp, North Carolina. The Clean Water Act prohibits anybody from discharging pollutants through a point source into a water of the United States unless they have an NPDES permit. The permit will contain limits on what can be discharged, monitoring and reporting requirements, and other provisions to ensure that the discharge does not hurt water quality or people's health. None of those sensible requirements are currently in place. Do we want to wait until the operation is in full force to get an answer? Quite possibly a very unpleasant answer. Currently, there is very little information regarding the proposed quarry operation and its obvious impact on local water sources and water quality. Alamance Aggregates LLC must explain what they are actually going to do, and their neighbors have a right to know details before the operation begins. One way for that to happen is to require an NPDES permit. Local residents who all depend upon private water wells for their water supply are at risk if the blasting, excavation, and pumping operations should disturb the underground water flow that those residents depend upon and either deplete those resources or contaminate them and subsequently the waters of the United States. The Clean Water Act prohibits pollutants being put into the water of the United States. Sand and rock under the Clean Water Act are considered a pollutant. My understanding is that part of the daily quarry operation will be the discharge of up to several 100,000 gallons of water from the quarry. That water discharge will contain pollutants as defined in the Clean Water Act. Will these pollutants find their way into one of the 2 creeks on the site? The people living downstream of these creeks have a right to know the answer to that. The people living downstream of the Haw River into which these creeks flow have a right to know the answer to that. The people drawing water from the Jordan Lake into which the Haw River flows have a right to know the answer to that, and so on, all the way to the sea. Also to be considered is the effect of huge volumes of water likely to be pumped into these little creeks. Can the creeks handle the increased flow? What will be in the effluent being pumped into these small creeks? What will be the impact on the environment and wildlife in those creeks? I think getting answers to these questions prior to operation is reasonable and necessary. In conclusion, the purpose of government is pretty simple. It is to protect the rights of we the people. As a state representative for NC House District 64, this area of Alamance County, it is my responsibility to protect the rights of the people I am privileged to represent. I respectfully ask that based on the serious concerns regarding public health and safety, and to protect the existing property rights of residents near the quarry, that NCDEQ require an NPDES individual permit of Alamance Aggregates LLC before permitting operations on site. Thank you.
My remarks will fall under category number 4, physical hazard, specifically the pipeline, and also health and safety, air quality. I am Pam Allen Causey. My property adjoins the proposed site on the Quakenbush Road side. My almost 70 acres on that road have been a part of my life for almost 70 years. My Allen grandparents lived on the other side of the proposed quarry site on the Clark Road side. My uncle and his granddaughter, along with her family, still live there. I'm not here to go over all the different things that the people are going to say tonight. What I want to ask you is to please consider the negative impact a quarry would make upon this community. You will hear speakers telling you about a variety of factors to consider. I just want to say that for 70 years I've been a part of this community, and I can attest to the reliability of their statements. I know firsthand about the runoff, the water table, the FEMA plan, the pipeline and the power line concerns. In fact, both the pipeline and the power line that cross the proposed quarry site continue on across my property. I'm also aware that some of the airborne particles from these type quarries are known carcinogens. All the what-ifs that you'll hear tonight go through my mind also. I know what it's like to live near a quarry. I grew up here when the Hoffman's Mill soapstone mine was in operation, which was also on Clark Road. I remember the constant smell of diesel exhaust, the dust, and so forth. I played on the playground here at Sylvan School with a soapstone quarry just a few miles away. I remember the blasting. I remember the fear as a child. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. Is there any connection? I don't know. My older brother lost his fight with lung cancer a few years ago, and he was never a smoker. Is there a connection? He grew up here also. Being a retired teacher, I cared for the well-being of other people's children for over 30 years. And being a grandmother, I care about the children of today and tomorrow. I care about the children of this community and Sylvan School. There are too many risks for the mine to be allowed. Please don't allow this to happen again to this community.
Boom! That's the sound of the dynamite blast from the proposed aggregate mine in southern Alamance County. We live in a quiet place of farms and houses, in contrast to the heavy industrial business. That sound is unnerving. Now I know that that sound is not something that the Department of Environmental Quality can hear, so I'm not going to talk about that. Boom! That's the sound of a fully loaded ground truck sideswiping a car as she pulls out of her driveway on Snow Camp Road. This is an accident. Things happen. Traffic is outside the scope of this investigation at hand. It's not something I'm going to talk about. Oh, the lady in the car, she's okay. Her daughter, she's all right. The car's totaled. And the truck driver, he's all right too. The truck went into the ditch. It's just a big mess out there on Snow Camp Road. Boom! That's the sound of an explosion at the fuel pipeline that runs next to the aggregate mining operation. The pipeline feels the vibrations of the blasting year after year, and eventually the seals and connections give way. The volatile jet fuel leaks quietly at first onto the groundwater and into the ground, and then one day there's enough concentration and a spark, and then, like I said, boom! Now this is the sound that can be heard by the Department of Environmental Quality. It will be heard all over the state. But by then the environmental damage will have been done. My farm will lose its water supply. I will lose my livelihood. It will take decades to clean up. It will destroy our little area of North Carolina. In the USA, we have experience with pipelines next to aggregate mining operations. We know that we have environmental problems in this situation. Allowing the aggregate mine on this site is too risky. Boom! That's the sound of the Department of Environmental Quality in Raleigh denying the permit because of the risk. And we can hear that sound all the way over here in quiet Snow Camp.
Next speaker is Elizabeth L-A-C-I-N-K.
To our community and hearing our concerns and objections to mining operation in Snow Camp. I'd like to thank the school for hosting us for our meeting. My name is Elizabeth Lozek. I live at 8378 Coleman Mill Road in Snow Camp, approximately 1.5 miles from the potential mining operation. My husband and I founded and operate Marley's Meadow Farm and Sanctuary, a 501c3 nonprofit animal sanctuary on our 15-acre farm. It is home to 10 horses, 11 donkeys, miniature and standard, a mule, 2 potbelly pigs, 6 dogs, and 7 cats, many of which are older and many with health issues. We are entirely on well water for our potable water supply for ourselves and for our animals. Our well is 190 feet deep. We are very concerned that the proposed crushed stone quarry mining operation, drawing 500,000 gallons of water per day from the ground supply, would cause our well to run dry. This would be a life and death situation for ourselves and our animals. We are also concerned about the contaminants entering our well water supply, as well as altering the present concentrations of minerals and metals to dangerous levels. It is not worth the risk. Air pollution is also a huge concern. Dust and airborne pollutants have the potential for causing serious respiratory illness and eye irritation or injury to the animals, as well as us humans who spend a great deal of time outside every day caring for the animals, and our volunteers and farm visitors. The animals will also be ingesting the air pollutants as they will contaminate their grass pasture as well as their water tanks. It is not worth the risk. As you are aware from previous speakers, the Colonial Pipeline is in close proximity of the proposed mining operation, and it runs on land adjacent to my property. Sylvan Elementary School, where this public hearing is being held, is in close proximity to the pipeline. An explosion or leak would be catastrophic. Evacuating people and all of the animals from our sanctuary would take a lot of time that we would not have. It is not worth the risk. I'm done. Thank you.
Good evening. You already know my name is Bill Poe, and I reside at 1907 Quaking Bush Road here in Smoky. I am within 1,000 yards of the center of the mine. I made a decision to move here to this community because of the agriculturally active residentially based and steeped with a rich culture of family, faith, and friends. I have 3 points I'm going to briefly touch on, and then I'll send further information in the written comments within the next few days. The first one I want to touch on is Snow Camp has a rich history dating back to the 1700s, when it was founded by Quakers and helped set up by many peoples of German and Scotch-Irish descent. In fact, this is the exact quarry site. There is a building less than 1,000 feet from the center of the quarry operations that is still in existence, and it was named the Gravel Hill School. And the Gravel Hill School is listed in the Alamance County Historical Property Survey. 2, that's the Mount, the center of operations of is North Carolina Central Farms, from the John Allen family and many others that are subject to recognition from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture as part of its Century Farm designations. And especially concerning to these farmers is water quality and soil conservation profession. And that's what the agricultural state of agriculture department. Number 3, within the state applied permitting documents shows that 2 parcels of the property included in the fenced-in commercial quarry operation are lots that are part of our HOA, our Homeowners Association of White House Acres. And in our covenants, they are protected within our, to strictly forbid any commercial activities on said properties. And the fencing includes these 2 parcels. This matter has been forwarded to the North Carolina State Department of Justice, DOJ, to protect the homeowners' rights in our states. I just want to thank you all for coming out, and I'll have a lot more written comments coming to you. Thanks.
Good evening. And in case you didn't guess, that was my husband. Good job. So now it's my turn. I'm Donna Poe, and I live with him, Bill Poe. And we've lived in Snow Camp on Quakenbush Road since 2005. And we've enjoyed our peaceful surroundings on 7 acres within that 9-tract HOA subdivision, with apparently a false sense of security and serenity after learning about the proposed crushed stone quarry plant only 1,000 yards away from our back door. As you have been and will hear more, there is a plethora of risks and reasons for this mine to not be allowed. And I thank you for giving us all the space to speak. The entire township of Snow Camp constitutes 61 square miles and 6,784 souls that make up our population. We are dependent on groundwater, including the volunteer fire department, as our only access to clean water. We do not have the option for city water. 120 plus residents are within the eminent risk factor should the zone of influence extend just 1 mile from the mine. We believe that as a community, our rights to clean water should not be threatened. It is a gift from God and a vital life source. We feel that the state of North Carolina, in considering this permit application, is taking far too great a risk with our essential access to clean water. There are no reference studies in the permit application, nor is there a stipulation that Alamance Aggregates would be responsible for the restoration of clean water to those impacted by their dewatering and blasting operations. Over the past 2 months, I have had a crash course, no pun intended, in geology with the assistance from the helpful and knowledgeable staff at the North Carolina Geological Survey, the NCGS, and DEQ, Division of Water Resource Departments. I have come to learn that without a thorough geophysical study for the proposed mining site and completion of geological maps, there is no way of predicting the zone of influence from dewatering. I've also learned that a geophysical map is essential in determining the potential flow of groundwater into and out of the site. Studies should include, at a minimum, a fracture site analysis and studies of the diabase dikes, followed by extensive pumping studies and baseline monitoring of neighboring private wells, along with any other appropriate tests known to the state of North Carolina to determine the potential drawdown impact and zone of influence this mine would pose for our community. And who's going to pay for that? Again, there are way too many risks to allow this mine to happen. Thank you again for your time, and I especially want to thank all the citizens of Snow Camp and our surrounding neighbors who have been finding hope, strength, and faith as we fight for our rights and seek the victory God has already prepared for us. Amen.
My name is Amy Colson. I live off Bass Mountain Road. I'm concerned about the mining operation for the same reason everybody else is. I'm concerned about my well. 15 years ago, I lived on my property for 27 years. I have a little 5-acre spot on top of Cane Mountain. About 15 years ago, there was blasting done to open up Sunrise Court. As the crow flies from my house to Sunrise Court, it's only about 1,000 yards. I wound up having to pay the cost to replace my well casing because it cracked during the blasting. After I had replaced the well casing, about 4 years later, a long, hard fight to get Mountain Trail paved resulted in more blasting right on the road I live off of, which fractured my well casing once again. I have a 260-foot deep well, and I'm concerned that pumping 50,000 gallons, 500,000 gallons a day is going to reduce the water table so that I will have to re-drill my well. My request is that before we consider approving this, I want to be sure that Martin Marietta has a plan and a fund set up to replace my well casing should it crack, and anyone else's. We also have a really high mineral content in our water here. I'm sure everybody else does too. And I had to have a very expensive water filtration system put in just to manage the increased iron and rust that came in after the blasting on Sunrise Court. So I am opposed to this being approved, and I thank you for your time.
Just to see where there's a lot of issues that do not meet the requirements from the Mining Act and from other things. And some of them are based on having water table that's going to pollute the water table and deplete it. And people that live on wells cannot survive through that and shouldn't have to do that in the United States of America. And the thing is, this is going to pollute the water table and the creeks and air. It causes a lot of problems for everything that surrounds this location. And it's going to also have a situation where you could have problems with the gas lines and the people that surround it. And this area, this historical area, it was here before the U.S. was the U.S. And the independence kept here. That's the way they got the names again. So the thing is, it's been here a long time. It's been private. It's been an area that people can come to enjoy the environment, not regret it. And the thing is, this whole situation came about before I even knew about it, and I lived here. So I think that this situation should be corrected by condemning the permits to create a crater in the ground that's 300 and something feet and take 500,000 gallons of water a day. And it's going to create a lot of problems for the environment, safety, and everything that does come up on the list right here, 1 through 5. So it does cover all the reasons not to have it, and does not cover any reason to have it, unless somebody just wants to make money. They come from an engineering background, professional, trained, and educated. I know that this creates a lot of issues for the environment and the water table in this area of Snow Camp. This is an area that's been here historically for hundreds of years, before the 1750s. And now, to come in and do a dynamite out of craters that learn this, it's going to be a terrible thing for this area. And it's going to create a lot of issues for the environment and safety of the people and the wildlife and the air.
have a child with asthma who, when she's sick, requires nebulizers, and I have fear that the dust would be a problem for her. I have an issue that no one else is aware. We have a very legitimate concern about the effect on air quality inside our home. When we built our home, which includes a full basement, we ran into granite. Therefore, we tested our home for radon gas that is frequently associated with the presence of granite. Radon levels exceeded recommended levels by the EPA. Due to the time of year we tested, which was summer, we likely did not measure the maximum levels that typically occur during winter months. Therefore, we had to install a mitigation system in our home to reduce, prevent whatever the radon gas from entering our home. However, anything that changes the pressure equilibrium that is created by this mitigation system can result in increased radon levels in our home. According to Dr. Ronald Mosley, a PhD retired physicist who worked with the EPA in the indoor air branch at RTP for about 20 years, starting in the mid-80s, researching the dangers of radon gas and how to remove it, he feels that the disruption in the granite at the quarry right next to us can likely increase the radon levels in both the air and water again. Blasting will cause increased fractures, even microscopic ones in the stone, and therefore increased paths that radon gas can travel into our home and other homes in the area. Also, changing water levels in the local area water supply can open up air spaces that will allow a greater influx of radon gas into our home and water. We had the levels of our water tested as well. According to Dr. Mosley, blasting can release more radon from the granite into surrounding underground water supply. Voids created with pumping out water can increase the movement of radon into surrounding water as well as homes. Dr. Mosley has expressed significant concern over the air quality in our home if the quarry is allowed to proceed next door. Radon gas is the second leading cause of lung cancer, as well as it can contribute to other cancers with chronic exposure. The only source of water in our area, as everyone else has mentioned, are wells. Our well is 200 feet deep, again, right next to the mine proposed area, and we only get 10 gallons per minute, which is a great concern to us as we understand that the plan is for them to dig down to 350 feet, and they have to pump all the water out to get to that point, to mine. In addition, we have no municipal water sources to replace if our wells are dry. In addition, our basement is solid cast concrete walls that were erected by crane, not block construction. We have fear that being right next to it, the kinetic energy that would run from their granite to the granite my house is sitting on would damage our home.
So my name is Jason Dowell. I have lived in Snow Camp with my wife Laura for nearly 30 years. I've been a professional videographer and cameraman for my whole career. A number of years ago, I was hired by a major aggregates corporation, which operates quarries all around the country, to produce a video to help them address public concerns surrounding their quarries. In the process of producing this video, I attended probably 10 town meetings which were called by folks living near quarries operated by this company. In all of these meetings, I've heard the same complaints. Some folks told that their wells going dry within a year of the start of operations. Others told of daily listening and blasting, which rattled their cupboards, fractured their plaster, and even cracked their foundations. Many mentioned the dust which traveled in great plumes and settled on everything, including their laundry hung out to dry. Others complained of children with chronic lung disorders, which they attributed to the dust. Still others told of their homes suddenly rendered next to worthless because no one wanted to buy property next to a quarry. And many complained about the heavy laden trucks on their narrow country roads, speeding, belching fumes, damaging the pavement, which had to be repaired by the county at the taxpayer's expense. The point I'm making here is this. In town meeting after town meeting, what I heard were not fears people had about what might happen. These were complaints they were expressing about what was happening to them personally. This was what these people were actually experiencing living next to a quarry. To their credit, I have to say the aggregates company did make some effort to address some of the complaints. But in the end, their final argument was that they were legally permitted, they were operating within the law, they were spending large amounts of money on efforts to mitigate some of the effects, and folks who didn't like it could either live with it or move somewhere else. And here's my other point. Even with all their money and their good faith efforts, they could not change the fact that living near a quarry is bad for your quality of life, bad for your property value, bad for your taxes, and bad for your health. So my question is this: if a multi-million-dollar corporation can't make having a quarry in your neighborhood anything other than unpleasant, unhealthy, expensive, and dangerous, how can we possibly believe that the folks who are hoping to dig this quarry here in Snow Camp can manage it? Because as far as I can see, they're a tiny, shady outfit run by people with apparently questionable business backgrounds who seem to be trying to chartered in another state, which allows some of them to remain anonymous, and seem to be trying to do this on the cheap so they can make the most profit, and trying to sneak this project in under the radar before the people most affected by it can even express their opinions about it. For these reasons, I'm asking our representatives, both locally and at the state level, to listen to the voices of the people most affected by this proposed project and withhold final permitting. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Thurman, and I live at 149 Clark Road, Snow Camp, with my husband Andy. We've been there for almost 28 years. I've got something written out, but it's pretty much just reiterates what everyone else is saying, except for a direct violation of the 1,000 feet parameter for notification as required by the Article 7B2 of the Mining Act. Corner to corner, our property is 650 feet from the corner of Snow Camp Property Investments, which is where Alamance Aggregates wants to do business. So I'll basically stop with that because that's my point. There is a direct violation of the Mining Act because we received no notification and we fell well under the required 1,000 feet notification. I do appreciate you listening, and like I said, the rest of my remarks just reiterate what other people have said about air quality, water quality, both of which are very important to me and my family. So thank you.
With no special construction features designed to reduce the effects of vibration and movement. As you've heard from many other speakers, there are two creeks that run through the adjacent of the mine site that actually feed a large drinking source, Lake Jordan, that serves over 300,000 people. And you'll hear later about the water quality of these creeks and the effect that this can have on this. There's a tremendous amount of watershed on this particular property, and I'm surprised that it can even be selected to be permitted given all the water that's there. The entire surrounding community is served by wells, over 150 within a mile of the school. And you've heard about spill in that groundwater. We have no other options. And in the case of an emergency, this rural area is only served by a volunteer fire department who have little equipment and training to deal effectively with a disaster of this magnitude. In closing, the most serious question that should be asked is why would the County of Alamance and the state of North Carolina take the huge risks associated with locating a crushed stone quarry that includes blasting on a site that has 3 hazardous pipelines and a high voltage transmission line. To my surprise, a review of both the county and the state applications for this project provide no mention of a pipeline or transmission line in their review. Is this risk really worth the benefit? Research indicates there are already 21 quarries between Charlotte and Raleigh, 2 already in Alamance County. The question remains, do we need another one, especially with the risks involved in this one? Thank you.
My name is Bill Hudson. Just newly retired and I'm ready to build on land that I've owned for over 20 years, which is less than a mile from the mining site. My biggest concern, and actually following up with what Gary said, are the 3 chlorine pipelines and the Duke Energy high voltage transmission lines that run directly through the site property, approximately 700 feet from the mining operation limits and in close proximity to blasting. The 3 pipelines carry gasoline, jet fuel, and kerosene to eastern North Carolina. A 2016 article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that 22 million gallons of assorted fuel were spilled from pipelines into the environment for just the last 6 years. These spills have catastrophic effects on the environment, drinking water sources, and can contaminate groundwater for years. The Pipeline and Hazard Material and Safety Administration, PHMSA, reports that every year pipeline incidents take lives, cause significant injuries, and cost millions of dollars. In 2011, PHMSA article states that these consequences may result in fires or explosions caused by ignition of the release product, as well as possible toxicity and asphyxiation effects. Some releases cause environmental damage, impact wildlife, or contaminate drinking water supplies. These releases also have significant economic effects. Releases of other hazardous materials, such as gasoline and crude oil, can also have both acute and long-term potential consequences, as the release product can spread over land and water. In the case of explosions, the blast impact zone, which is determined by the pipeline pressure and the local topography, can be thousands of feet from the initial accident site. In fact, in 2016, one of the branches of these same pipelines, Colonial, spilled over 350,000 gallons of gasoline in Shelby, Alabama. And 1 month later, the same pipeline had an explosion accident killing 2 people. These accidents caused huge shortages in gasoline flow to the southeast. Vibrations from blasting can cause damage to nearby structures, and the dewatering of mines can cause erosion and shifting, often resulting in sinkholes. Both of these consequences could have negative and devastating effects on the integrity of both the pipeline and the electrical transmission lines, causing catastrophic damage to the environment, presenting health and safety risks to local residents. High voltage transmission lines can be affected by blasting, as I said before, and in the Alamance aggregate proposal, the Duke Energy lines are even closer to mine operations than the pipelines themselves. The high voltage transmission lines are regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We believe that it would be prudent for state officials to notify the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to ensure there is adequate oversight of the project and to protect affected citizens. Again, I close with, is this risk worth it?
Thank you for the opportunity to comment about the proposed crushed stone mine. My name is Barry Tomlinson, and my wife and I own a small farm in this beautiful community of Snow Camp. Our farm is located less than 2 miles as the honeybee flies from the site of the proposed mine. We have an organic gardening operation, and I am a certified beekeeper and a member of both the North Carolina Beekeepers Association and the Alamance County Beekeepers Association. I know several other beekeepers that are located within 3 miles of the site of the proposed mine, and at any given time, we operate as many as 50 beehives collectively. Although there are times when that number surpasses 100 beehives, as hives are often brought in for research and pollination purposes. I use the 3-mile delineation because honeybees will forage for a distance of 3 miles from their hives to collect pollen and nectar. It is well documented that a mine of this nature will produce heavy amounts of dust and particulates that contain heavy metals and known carcinogens. These dust clouds, which can travel some distance, will settle on and contaminate pollen and nectar sources for those honeybees that we all rely on. In the written copy of my comments, I have cited 2 studies that confirm that honeybees will bring those contaminants back to the beehives. As beekeepers, we already have enough to deal with in keeping our hives alive and healthy. We all rely on honeybees for pollination of the food we grow, and we beekeepers have businesses related to products of the hive, especially pure, raw honey. As senior citizens on a fixed income, we enjoy extra income derived from the sale of that wonderful, pure honey. Any contamination of that honey with heavy metals and carcinogens would be catastrophic. Please do not allow the permitting of this disastrous, dangerous, poisonous mine in our beautiful community.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is James Davison. I have a PhD in cell biology and physiology, and I've been working in health-related fields for 10 years. Based on my research into this topic, I surmise that the Snow Camp mine will increase the risk of developing lung diseases in children and snow camp residents. Crushed stone quarries, like the proposed Snow Camp mine, generate a dangerous particle pollution called respirable crystalline silica that are emitted in the form of dust. These microscopic molecules evade building ventilation filters, travel for miles, and represent a significant risk for developing many chronic lung diseases, including asthma, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and silicosis. Silicosis is a progressive, disabling, and often fatal lung disease that can lead to lung cancer, COPD, and tuberculosis. Crystalline silica represents such a significant public health concern that the EPA developed an algorithm to define the cumulative risk of developing silicosis in relation to dust exposure. To reduce this risk, modern gravel facilities try to limit dust emissions, yet they can still emit at least 60 micrograms per cubic meter of resveratrol silica as far as 750 meters away from the mine site. If the Snow Camp mine becomes operational, based on this EPA algorithm and the concentration of silica 750 meters away, children born in this area after the mine opens and that remain in this area for their entire life have a 99.6% chance of developing silicosis over that lifetime. This conjecture is supported by a 2012 study that found the prevalence of silicosis in residents in the vicinity of stone cutting industries was as high as 12.6%. If this line is established, it will be in the vicinity of this school with 5-year-old kids. These kids will be at the school for the next 6 years. Over those 6 years, 5 days a week and 8 hours a day, this mine will continue to add to their cumulative exposure of crystalline silica and add to their risk of developing silicosis in their lifetime. Life is made up of a series of choices and managing risks. Sometimes we as individuals get to make those choices ourselves. Other times people in power make those choices and manage risks that will affect us and our quality of life. With this mine, you will make a choice that will impact risk for others, including the thousands of kids that attend this school over several decades while this mine functions. By choosing to support this mine, you choose to increase the risk of developing debilitating lung diseases in children and residents. Or you can choose to mitigate these risks by revoking the permit of the Snow Camp mine. Thank you.
Amanda. He's Chris. 27 years ago, we lived in Durham County, and we have a son who had asthma. I cleaned my house. I worked hard, tried to do my best to keep it clean so this child could stay out of the doctor's office and out of the hospital. No matter how hard I cleaned, it didn't work. My pediatrician told me to go home one night, clean my windshield. I did that. He said, next morning when you get up, go out and clean the windshield again. That morning, that paper towel was black. That's the air my son was breathing. That was the air we were all breathing. We moved to Snow Camp for a better way of life for him. Clean air, my son was able to come off all medications except for the ones that were seasonal medications for allergies. Silica dust causes scars in the lungs. It reduces the ability of the lungs to take in much needed oxygen. It causes COPD, it causes tuberculosis, and then to put on top of that, rock quarries usually turn into paving plants that along with their dust and much finer dust and diesel power, it even becomes airborne to the fact that it not only affects the lungs, but it affects the heart. It kills patients. Our elementary school is too close to this proposed site. My child, I think of all children. Will these children be forced to wear a mask to go outside and play? Or yet would some of them be forced to remain inside, not able to go outside to get their daily dose of vitamin D, which helps to cure the calcium for nice, rich, strong bones? What are we putting our children's life at risk? Water is also a concern. The 2007 drought had many of us in fear that our wells would run dry. Matter of fact, many people's wells did run dry. My well is only 65 feet. I have one of the not so deep well. I'm fortunate. But I went to the Graham laundromat to do laundry in 2007 to conserve our water supply. We took the 3F bath, and for those who don't know what that is standing there in your seat, wash your face, feet, and fanny in that order. 3F. Our home sits between Holman Mill Road between the Cane Creek and the Reedy Creek Bridge. During a hurricane, it will overflow the banks. During heavy rains, it will overflow the banks, and my backyard becomes a lake. I will include pictures of that. The worst I have ever seen was in Hurricane Fran. It covered the 18th fence posts along the fence. Fence posts are 4 feet high, set 5 feet apart. So my concern is with the release of hundreds of thousand gallons of water, what will my property look like? Will it come into my foundation? Will it come into my home? This is too much of a risk for anyone to have in this area.
My husband and I live on Moon Lindley Road, which is parallel to Clark Road and less than 2 miles away. I'm 69 years old, he is 76, and we've both been prescribed inhalers to help with our respiration when necessary. We feel fortunate to live in a place where use of these devices isn't generally a daily need, but fear our air quality will worsen when a mine begins spewing pollutants into the air. Breathing clean air is something we treasure and something everyone, young and old, deserve, especially young people. We're going to die for too long, but little kids shouldn't be exposed to this. Will gasping for breath and struggling daily to breathe become a new reality in snow camp? Just as important is water, and like the last speaker, my well isn't very deep. My well is 110 feet. Like everybody in our area, we depend on wells. I've lived here for almost 40 years and have heard stories of wells running dry when someone down the road or even a half-mile away digs a new well. What is going to happen when massive amounts, 500,000 gallons a day, are pumped? When our wells run dry, what are we supposed to do? We can't hook up to a municipal water supply. We don't have one. So just please tell us what we're to do.
My name's Floyd Moore. My wife and family settled in Snow Camp, in historical Snow Camp, in 1980. We live on the Snow Camp Road, adjacent to the proposed rock quarry. I'm a grading and construction business, and we built a winery in 2008. My concerns: silica dust. I read that granite rock is 40 to 50% silica. Will you tell me? I'll tell you, they wet it down and it takes care of it. I've been to rock quarries, I know that. Not right. And what about the trucks that leave the rock quarries? Where do they put the wash water? Into our streams to feed our wildlife and fish? Wells, next concern. My well's now 60 foot deep, and a lot of my neighbors and friends' wells is shallow. If I pump 500,000 gallons a day, will I still have water? Will it be contaminated? Who will pay to fix it? Blasting. My house foundation is on solid rock. Will this affect my home? Will I pay for my foundation? As for the winery, silica dust from the quarry and passing trucks will affect my brakes and my customers. I was told by Chad, I can't pronounce his name, got from South Carolina, this would only be a small mining operation, 20 acres to make riprap for stake and gravel for asphalt. Everybody knows you just can't make 2 different routes. It's a lot in between them. Some of them have asphalt plant, don't they? The community should have a lot more information for a company from Wyoming can come here and do this to us. My customers at the winery, I sit on my porch, say it's so nice and peaceful out here. And we're not supposed to be able to talk about traffic noise, road damage, even though our tax dollars pay for the roads. And a lady over there, she wrote this on my paper, and she mentioned something about veterans with PTSD, I guess, about the virus and the effects on them. I thought that was a good point. Thank you for letting me speak.
My name is Gene Wells, and I'm the fire chief of Snow Camp Fire. I'm not, this is going to be a little different. I'm not here to talk for or against this quarry. I'm here to quiet some rumors about the capabilities of our fire department. We have the largest fire district in Alamance County, 71.38 square miles. We're totally rural department, as y'all know. And, but our goal as a fire department is to serve this community to the best of our ability, no matter what type of call we respond to. We set our training up to meet the occupancy type and the needs of our community, the farm and residential. That's what our training is set up to be. If this quarry does move into the district, yes, there's specialized training. I'm already, and I have no idea whether this quarry is coming or not, but I'm already planning. We're in the planning stages right now of starting this type of training in January. There's different classes, pioneer rescue, trench rescue, confined space, and water rescue. These are long drawn-out classes, but we don't mind doing them. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to serve the people of this community. As far as equipment, we have 4 stations. We have 14 pieces of apparatus. We do have some of the equipment that we would be required to use in the event that something were to happen, but we don't have it out. That's where grants come in. We can apply for grants to buy specialized equipment. The thing that concerns me, and just to give you an example, our firefighting capabilities are based on water supplies. Our water supplies come from lakes and ponds that some of y'all have written agreements with us now to use those ponds and lakes. And we appreciate that. We could not do our job if we don't have ponds and lakes. I don't know how many of these are spring fed. There may be none, I don't know. But at any time, any one of these landowners can withdraw that permission from us. It's their right, it's their property. But at the same time, if y'all remember a few years ago, when that severe drought came through, pretty much same boat. Level of ponds and lakes were down. Yes, sir. But we are considering and starting a tanker task force where we will have additional water supplies come in. But just to let you know that there's a lot of hard work, dedication of these volunteers. They put in a lot of hard work. And I thank y'all for listening to me. And like I said, I'm not here for or against. I just want to kind of resolve some of the questions and facts. I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 at the station on Snow Camp Road, and I'm back. If you want to like to stop me, you're more than welcome. Thank you.
My name is Caroline Newland, and my family
concern here about this project is a possible, if not probable, effect it will have on the water table in the surrounding area. Currently, our well is somewhat shallow, and if our water table goes down, that would be pretty devastating to our home and our livelihood. So, according to information which has been released by the proposed quarry's owners, this operation will use 500,000 gallons of water per day for stone processing operations. And then there is the dewatering of the ground in the vicinity of the quarry itself. There are quite a few homes and farms in the immediate vicinity of the proposed quarry, and it would appear to face a very likely prospect of having their wells' water level lowered, if not dried up completely, if this project is allowed to proceed. I'm all for economic development, and this project will not bring very many jobs to the area. I don't think it will bring any. And the fact of the matter is that it will take away the jobs and the livelihoods of the people who live here and make this town economically viable. So I fear the negatives far outweigh the positives that, if they exist, in this case for the people of Alamance County. Thank you.
So my name is Laura Johnson. I live on the Onondaga Trail in Snow Camp. I am a fairly recent resident to the area, but I also learned about this only recently. I'm going to kind of skip to the point because a lot of things that I was going to say have already been said. The two creeks that run on the east and west side of the property are both in the FEMA floodplain. The creek that's on the eastern side, the Reedy Creek branch, is also a protected drinking water source. We've already heard that Alamance Aggregates plans to discharge water into both of these creeks, as well as holding ponds on the property. Our understanding of the county floodplain rules and the FEMA regulations and the Clean Water Act is that this constitutes a modification to the floodplain. Because this is a modification to the floodplain, that would constitute that a development permit is needed at the federal level, and a county floodplain permit is needed at the local level. To our knowledge, neither of these have been applied for or granted. In addition, we understand that there are holding ponds, setbacks, and buffers claimed on the property. I think every single year in this county and across our state, we learn the lesson that holding ponds, buffers, and setbacks do not work. I think everybody in here has seen multiple times this year that with hurricanes and with heavy water, our creeks flood, our roads get overflowed, every single pond is flooded, and even properties that are completely dry most of the rest of the year turn into ponds. This is an entire area that floods during heavy rain and during hurricanes. These holding ponds are going to have fines, they're going to have silica dust, they're going to have heaven knows what else pumped out of the water into holding ponds that are going to flood the surrounding properties, run into our cave creeks, run into Cane Creek, and into our water sources. The biggest concern that I have personally at this point, and I understand that the two gentlemen in the front row here today are from Alamance Aggregates, we don't know who you are. We're right here. We've been right here. You have every opportunity to come tell us who you are. Instead, you registered in Wyoming. And you've taken opportunities to keep anonymous and to limit your liability while putting all the risk on our community. You're asking us to trust you when you haven't given us a reason to trust you. We breathe here, we drink water here, we run businesses here, we raise children here. This is our home. It's not your home. You don't have the right, just because you want to produce rock, to come in and destroy all of that and to not protect us. The only thing was done was, one person reviewed this and one person signed off on this at the county level, and that's all that's been done for time. So now the onus is on the state to do that job.
My name is Larry George, and I'm president of Salome Missionary Homes in Quakenbush Road. We have 14 homes on 44 acres within 1 mile of where this proposed site is going to be. Reedy Creek runs the full length of our property, and we have children that play in that creek on a regular basis. and our concern is not only their well-being, but also water contamination. We've all watched and or on TV and a number of times where companies that have been fined huge fines bail out and leave it to the local taxpayers and the community to take care of. My question to you, and I ask you, is do you take into account that they have the financial obligation and the money banked so that in case there is a catastrophe that they will pay for it and that they don't bail out and make us, the people of Snow Camp, pay for it? Thank you.
These are some tough acts to follow. My name is Alexander Long. I work in the industrial recycling industry, and I am legally obligated not to tell you a lot of dirty secrets about a lot of big companies. I was born with chronic bronchitis, and I, to this day, have trouble breathing regularly. I moved out of Chapel Hill to get to a place where there's less pollution and cleaner air, and thanks to that move, I do feel like my lungs have started to get better. Together with my partner, Allison, and my mother, Marika, we have 53 acres of farmland very close to Snow Camp Road. We currently have cows, goats, chickens, garden and orchard areas, and a horse. Our intent is to add to our farm output and create a nature-based education program for children, particularly with disabilities and behavioral issues. Our well is 100 feet deep, and we have very expensive filtration systems to deal with the heavy mineral content in that well. We also have foundation issues in our house, and earlier this year I had to call Ramjack out to look at one of those cracks. Foundation issues and well issues are incredibly expensive to fix, and we're not the kind of people who have that money. It was going to cost $9,000 for Ramjack to put the carbon fiber straps on the wall in our basement. I'm not opposed to mining. I really do appreciate gravel. I use it often, and I need more of it. I'm also grateful to mining companies for the work they do to provide that low-cost raw commodity on the kind of scale that we need. I acknowledge that if communities like ours didn't buy the stuff, then these folks wouldn't build more mines. That being said, my questions relate to the long-term ramifications of the specific practices used by mining companies in extracting their resources. I want to know exactly what precautions this company uses as a steward of this large plot of land. I want to know exactly how they plan to protect the living plant and animal resources in the area. I want to know exactly how they plan to stop the pollutants, particularly chemical, from degrading their site now and for decades and centuries to come. I want to know how they plan to restore a natural ecosystem that can once again be integrated into the community after they moved out of the community. And I also want to know, from the government perspective, if these are just protocols or if they are legally obligated to actually clean up their messes, and whether or not there's a way that we can guarantee they will do so. In the 21st century, I think we've all gotten around to the knowledge that the actions we take in one place have an effect elsewhere. We're not even close to aware of all the ways that mining affects earth, air, and water. But it has been well demonstrated that fracturing the ground through chemicals or explosives allows infiltration of potentially dangerous compounds, destabilizes the earth to the point that sinkholes or even earthquakes can result, and easily changes ground level water's levels and patterns, while usually also contaminated. Water is life. It is the most valuable resource for every single living entity, and all water is connected. This community has deep roots and shallow wells. Our families plan to remain here long after this company and their representatives have closed their operation. So my question is, apart from the cheap gravel, how do they plan to be part of our community, and is it worth the risk?
Thank you. Ron Stickhoven, 2709 Quaker Bush Road, Snow Camp. The current population of Snow Camp is 6,784 residents. The proposed plan for the quarry is to pump 1 million gallons of, 1.5 million gallons of water per day, which at an average of 80 gallons per person would be equivalent to over doubling the water use of the population overnight. The U.S. government recently issued a report about climate change warning of increased incidence of drought. Reducing the level of the water table by such an extreme amount for the purpose of mining gravel is an assault on our water resources. Our wells would need to be drilled deeper at a significant expense. The effect on our water quality is unknown. I lived in California 8 years ago near where a fuel pipeline ruptured and caused a massive explosion, resulting in the loss of 8 lives, dozens more injured, and devastating loss of property. The emotional damage to members of that neighborhood and the community at large will remain with us forever. This horrible disaster could be repeated here, with blasting occurring in such proximity to a fuel pipeline, or it can be prevented by revoking the quarry's permit. We do not want to live in constant fear of this potential disaster, as the pipeline runs just a few hundred feet from our house. Our home is on the Pine Hill branch of Cane Creek, 1 mile directly downstream from the proposed site. It is home to many wildlife species, including heron, geese, turtles, frogs, fish, and beavers, to name a few. We are extremely concerned with the potentially devastating impact the runoff from gravel washing and blasting will have on the precious wildlife that depend on our fresh water. Snow Camp holds a significant number of historic hand-built antebellum Quaker stone dams. We are very concerned that constant blasting will create damaging vibrations that will weaken these historic dams, causing them to collapse and breach. Any water contamination produced from blasting and washing would end up flowing even further downstream, endangering all dependent wildlife and jeopardize the health and safety of residents downstream. Due to construction-caused air contamination at her workplace, my wife developed a respiratory illness and now must telework from home. The wind direction blows directly towards our home from the proposed blasting site. Particulate matter in the air would create a health risk to all in the vicinity, especially the young and elderly and those with respiratory issues. This would not be ordinary dust, but superfine silica particles, as mentioned before, that we would all be breathing.
I'm BJ Privet. We recently moved to Snow Camp, built a house, are raising about to be 3 kids, because this is a great community. We love the people that are here. We know a lot of other people that have moved here recently as well. So I was going to talk a lot about crystalline silica tonight, but I think we've all already had a good education from the previous speakers. We are a family of asthmatics, and it sounds like a lot of other families have lung and breathing issues as well. If you don't, breathe crystalline silica for a while and you will. So I won't talk anymore about crystalline silica. What I am concerned about is the trade association that represents many of the mines around the country is quoted in the EPA comments as saying, as a result of the complexity and cost involved, safe operation of quarries, including the minimizing air pollution, requires experienced operators. Even among experienced operators, there are numerous examples of repeated violation of state and federal air quality standards. And I've detailed a few of them in the comments I'm going to hand in. In the case of this application, though, it's not clear that the applicant has any experience with coring operations, as the company was only recently incorporated. Looking through the permit application, it's clear it doesn't contain enough information regarding modeling, control, or monitoring of airborne pollutants produced by the operation to determine the risk to air quality in this community. In order to protect the inhabitants of Snow Camp, I ask that the state of North Carolina deny the permit on the grounds that the operation is likely to violate standards of air quality. In the case that the permit remains under consideration, I ask that the state of North Carolina require the following as a part of the permitting process. Further study of the potential impact of coring operations on the air quality of the surrounding areas, and a detailed analysis of the mineral content to see if it contains any toxic pollutants that are regulated by the laws of the state of North Carolina, specifically 15A NCAC 02D.1101, that may become airborne as a result of the mining operation. I thank
Tommy Hicks. I live on Quaker Bush Road. My concerns are this. We've heard a lot about a very complex type of operation which is proposed. One of the things that is concerning to me is the company that is proposing this very complex operation is a limited liability company whose primary office is in a broken down, unheated, burned out building on Clark Road. The proponents of this kind have been playing a corporate shell game with 3 limited liability companies out of Wyoming, where you have a lot of protection of privacy for business owners. However, what is concerning to me, it comes under number 7, where there's a determination of acts of wrongdoing by any of the members. Of course, LLCs act through their members. Who are they? One we know is a Chad 3 or Chad 3, who may be sitting here today. He is either a present or former employee of a Box Paving Company out of Monroe, which was recently convicted on fraud and money laundering in federal court in the Western District of North Carolina, along with many of its executives. The individual who applied for the local permit is a Mr. McDonald, who listed his address in Wyoming in a virtual office, but who actually lives in Grandma, who's been involved in bankruptcy since 2014. He's had a number of issues there. I ask that you pay special attention to do as the representative stated, to vet these individuals. Find out who they are. Find out if they've done any of those things that would prohibit them from having a permit. And perhaps find out why it's so important for them to be able to hide their identity under these shell corporations which they filed out of state and brought back to North Carolina. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Snow Camp on Holman Mill Road, 1.2 miles from the proposed mine site. For the following reasons and evidence is why I'm against the proposed Snow Camp mine. I won't reiterate the many thorough and valid points that have been made here tonight, some of which I wasn't even aware of. Of course, the number one was the close proximity to the Colonial Pipeline and this elementary school, exposing our students, teachers, and community to imminent threat. These operations produce known and proven carcinogenic air and groundwater pollution. Cane Creek runs the entire length of my property, which also is a big concern for flooding, as I did flood almost a third of my property in both hurricanes and the heavy rainfall we saw in November. In regards to the air pollution, I have a family history of lung cancer, and I lost my mother and my aunt who never smoked a day in their life to lung cancer. I also run a USDA licensed wildlife rescue at this address called Wild Tales. I am very fearful of the effects that the air pollution and water pollution will have on these rescued animals I have taken in and provide wildlife education with. My attending veterinarian is deeply concerned, especially for the avian species, whom have extremely sensitive respiratory systems. The 500,000 gallons of water being used by this operation a day is also obviously a concern for depleting the aquifers and the wells that depend on them. Located on my property are the remaining brick and stone walls of Holman Mill, which is greatly valued by the community of Snow Camp as part of the history. These walls are already unstable and leaning without reinforcement, and I feel that blasting 1 mile from this historic site threatens the stability of these ruins. The permanent and devastating damage done to the land and ecosystem by this mining operation will prevent Alamance County from growing as a community. This is not the type of business Alamance County is loved for and has seen tremendous growth in families and farmers who have a passion for preserving our rural community. With so many risks and dangers this mine poses to this community, I feel the underhandedness and the secrecy of the whole process is reason enough to be extremely fearful for the safety of Snow Camp
My name is Allison. My husband, daughter, and I live on White House Court and Frankenbush. Our property adjoins that of the proposed quarry site, including a shared pond that drains onto our acreage. Our concerns with this quarry and Alamance aggregates are numerous. If they can be bothered to find the correct landowners to give notice to, which I did not receive notice, I found out through Facebook. Even though my house is 100 feet from the property that they own, how can we believe that they're going to do the right thing and that they've done the research when it comes to ensuring all measures are taken to make sure that the highly volatile pipelines and the high voltage wires are protected, that the air will be kept as clean as it can be, and that our wells won't run dry. We moved here in July when my husband retired from the Army to start a micro farm where we could raise our daughter in peace. Unfortunately, we're learning that our parcel, aside from being part of the White House Acres Homeowners Association also, which doesn't allow the acreage to be used for commercial purposes, is on some of the lowest land around and turns to marsh every time it rains from the water that overflows on the pond and from the hydro land on the quarry site. In addition to depleting the water levels in our well, we're concerned that the sediment created from the quarry blasting and grinding can travel over to the ground surface into our streams and ponds, as well as travel back into the groundwater, leading to increased turbidity and contamination of our well water. Quarries use large quantities of water in sorting and washing the aggregate and in dust control. Water used on the site can contain chemicals, hydrocarbons, and sediment. In addition, sliding of unconsolidated materials near the water bodies can introduce a large quantity of sediment and rot into the aquatic environment. Dissolved contaminants, primarily metals, sulfate, and nitrate, can mitigate from mining operations to the underlying groundwater and to the surface water. According to the USDA Technical Guide to Managing Groundwater Resources, the processed water, mine water, and runoff and seepage from the mine waste piles can transport dissolved contaminants into the groundwater. Due to the high transmissivity of the projected, but as of yet unmapped geology of the mine, these contaminants could find their way into the aquifer that supply our well, and most definitely onto my property, affecting the grass that my daughter plays in, and that my horse faces. So to reiterate, more knowledge on this mine, we need it. We can't let this happen without that information. Thank you.
Snow Camp, I've never lived in Snow Camp. My great-great-great-great-grandparents are buried in the Cane Creek Meeting Cemetery. They were born in the 1730s. I've inherited with some of my other relatives 100 acres of undeveloped land and working road. Eric Creek is on the western border of our property, and it's also the same creek that goes by the permit area. And it's the so-called unnamed creek. There's lots of tailing ponds and skimmer basins and things over on that side. I assume avoiding Reedy Creek. I'm going to drill down on some of the concern about the potential of this mine to draw down the water level in our wells. Quarry operations are long-term land uses that progress in width and depth over time. When mining proceeds below the water table, the operator must begin pumping the natural inflow of groundwater out of the quarry in order to continue mining. This pumping or dewatering can lower the groundwater levels in areas around the permit. The lowering of the water levels is called drawdown. The drawdown is greatest near the quarry and generally lessens as you go farther away from the quarry. The drawdown area forms an inverted cone-like shape with the quarry at the center. This is called the cone of depression. The cone of depression is not fixed and it can fluctuate. Of even greater significance than the fairly localized cone of depression is the larger zone of influence created by the drawdown if it affects surrounding aquifers and water wells. The applicant has determined that the impact of dewatering this area at a rate of 500,000 gallons, 500,000 gallons per day, to a depth of 325 feet would have no impact on neighboring residential wells. Yet the geology in the area suggests otherwise. The geology in the immediate quarry area has not been mapped, but mapping by the state has been completed less than a mile due south of the quarry. This mapping shows the presence of structures called dye-based dikes, which can create underground high-volume waterways. There are also multiple faults and fractures communicating with these dikes, a situation that increases the transmissivity for potential water exchange within a network of interconnected aquifers. Based on the mapping and LiDAR images of lineaments that track all lines of the property, there is a high likelihood that the proposed mining property contains these same structures and would have a high degree of transmissivity. We're concerned that the zone of influence extends for miles instead of just staying right around the quarry. We're also concerned about drought and flooding. We've got 120 Snow County households within 1 mile of the proposed quarry site that rely on aquifers for their water. Thank you for letting me speak.
I'm Jennifer Dwayne Spinhofer. I live at 2709 Quakenbush Road, 1 mile and 600 feet from the proposed mine. My husband Ron spoke earlier. I have worked in senior services and elder justice advocacy for over 30 years, and I currently work for a federal agency in D.C. While living in D.C., I was assigned to work on several pilot projects to protect older people, older North Carolinians, from financial exploitation. This required me to visit Raleigh and other areas around the state. I would then spend weekends in Snow Camp and fell absolutely in love with the area. After much consideration and the fact that North Carolina is considered the 4th best state in the country to retire to, we purchased our property in Snow Camp. We are planning the development of an innovative model retirement village on our acreage, which borders a picturesque stretch of the Pine Hill Branch of Cane Creek, just 1 mile due east of the proposed blasting site for crushed rock. The plan is 100% contingent on the surrounding environment being suitable for retirement living, and the toxic dust presents a significant risk to the entire population, particularly youngsters, but also older people. Just 4 weeks ago, we closed on the purchase of the property next door for this specific purpose of developing the retirement retreat, just as we discovered the permit for the crushed rock quarry had been granted by the County of Alamance. And we discovered since that the pipeline that runs right down out of the border of our property, presenting another very significant risk. The proposed rock quarry will crush our business plan. We urge you not to allow this permit application to go forward for the same reasons that have been mentioned, but mostly the toxic dust, flooding costs, and landing on the property put all of the area's residents, older residents, younger residents, but older residents that we would like to serve, at great risk of pulmonary issues, perhaps devastating or even life-threatening. I also have a respiratory disorder from prolonged exposure to toxic construction contaminants in an office building in D.C. I have been working from home in Snow Camp for a year and have been improving. I am actually off the daily respirator and respiratory therapy, as another older woman here talked about earlier. And now, what are we looking at? What am I looking at? And the rest of us. I fear for my own health should this permit go forward. Of course, the 500,000 gallon per day depletion of water supply would likely result in the property not having enough water. The contamination of the ground, water, etc. would be devastating for everyone, including wildlife. So this will destroy our plan if it goes through. So I request you take our testimony into consideration and do not allow the project to go forward. Thank you.
My name is Jamie Hicks. I was born and raised in Raleigh, but having lived near Houston, Texas for 32 years, I know quite a bit about petroleum pipelines. I was shocked to learn that a mining company had applied for a permit to blast and excavate crushed stone along the Colonial Pipeline, which continues across the road, under the road, and through my property. It didn't seem possible to me that anyone would remotely consider a mining operation near a hazardous liquid pipeline. In 1992, not long after I moved to Houston, I had an experience with an exploding pipeline. While getting ready for work one morning, I felt the house shake with a strange air pressure. I thought it was an earthquake, but later learned that it had been a pipeline explosion 80 miles away in Brenham, Texas. Liquefied petroleum gas had somehow seeped through a leak near an underground storage station. No one knows what caused the leak or what ignited it. But reading the account from the New York Times, in what was once green countryside with splashes of flowers, there was ugly destruction and grieving after the explosion. A young boy was killed when his trailer home was crushed by the explosion. 70 people were severely injured, including 4 people whose cars were blown off the road. A few hundred yards from the blast, the ground was studded with blackened tree limbs that had been hurled into the air and had been landed with such force they were left standing in the ground like spears. The nearby woods and meadows were littered with the carcasses of cows, donkeys, and other animals that had been killed in the explosion. This was a force unknown and unpredicted by anyone until it happened. On learning of the intentions of Alamance Aggregates to engage in mining activities that would be generating seismic energy near the Colonial Pipeline, I called Colonial on October 18th to get their take on it, only to learn that they had not been notified of the permit application by the applicant, by the county, or by the state. Not only were they not notified, Duke Power, whose high voltage electrical transmission line runs parallel to the pipeline, was not notified. I am just surprised that it has reached this level of review by the state of North Carolina, with all of these anxious people here who have devoted countless hours frantically researching pipelines, mining laws, geology and hydrology references, and preparing the only defense we have, which are our comments at this hearing. I so appreciate your time in hearing this out and hope that you will strongly consider the unpredictable consequences and potentially lethal legacy of allowing this mining proposal to go any further. Thank you.
So my name is Jeff Morrison. I live at Old Dam Road, 770 Old Dam Road, and it's less than 2 miles from the proposed site. I'm concerned about the adverse impact of the quarry on the groundwater, both the quality and availability of that water, to neighboring wells like mine. The groundwater sustains my family and my livestock at my farm. Regarding the land for the proposed quarry, I don't know the landowner, I don't know the permit applicant, or any of its parents, subsidiaries, or other affiliates. Therefore, I can see how we can fairly evaluate their compliance with the statute 7451, paragraph 7. I don't know if they're good actors or if they're bad actors. If their intentions are honorable, why operate in the shadows? Their identity is somewhat obscured by their charter in Wyoming. It's clear that they're not members of my community. As such, they don't live on or near the property. They don't depend on groundwater derived from wells on the site on or near the property. Their children do not attend this school. They don't drink the water. They don't breathe the air. With no attachment to this land or to this community, there won't be any accountability either. A business owner's responsibility will be to capital. A return on shareholder value, maximizing profits, despite the impact on the local children, on our families, on our livestock, on our farms and land. If this permit is granted, Years from now, when the land is already desperate, when the aquifer is depleted, when the remaining water is contaminated, when the air is filled with hazardous particulates, when the wildlife is killed, these industrialists will have pocketed a tidy profits, and they'll still remain unaccountable to this community and all of its members. You have both the responsibility and the privilege of overseeing this permitting process. The county and state government officials who permit this to happen, if it happens, will be unable to address the grievance once the horse is out of the barn. Now is the time to act. Please do not allow this permit to be granted.
Thank you for coming out to hear us. Thank you, Sheriff Johnson, for being here. Dennis and Polly Liddell, the county manager, Brian Haygood's here, and Scott Gailey. It's great to finally have an opportunity for the people of our community to be heard. So thank you for that. I want to remind everybody that this is a school. It's very, very close to the site of the proposed mine. If you could walk in a straight line, you'd be there probably in less than 10 minutes. We have hundreds of children who are here every day, dozens of adults who teach them and take care of them. Furthermore, we have a medical clinic right here on this campus operated by Piedmont Health. Full disclosure, I work for them, but I'm speaking for myself. Yeah. We built this clinic a few years ago because our community is so far away from other hospitals and medical facilities. We were able to get a grant from the federal government to take a portable classroom that used to be used as a art building, and with the help and guidance and blessing of the school system, and with Piedmont coming in to operate it, we have a fully functioning medical clinic with 2 providers and other nurses and staff that are here every day. If they were unable to have access to clean, healthy water, that clinic would not be able to function, period. And all the money that was invested by the taxpayers would thus go to waste. Okay. Also, in looking at the list of the 7 reasons for why you can deny this permit, I noticed that one makes reference to if an operation could have a significantly adverse effect on the purposes of a publicly owned park, forest, or recreation area. Adjacent to this campus, owned by the school system, but operated by Alamance County Parks and Recreation, we have recreation facilities on which, probably over the years, thousands of children have played baseball, softball, basketball, soccer, within a few feet from here. Okay. Again, these programs could not be operated without clean water, and it would just be, I think, foolishly, self-evidently stupid to expose those activities to the kind of dirt and dust and pollution that we're talking about from this project. You were kind enough to read from the mining law at the start of this program tonight. So I would like to finish by reading from the mission statement of the Department of Environmental Quality. And I quote here. Real quick, I promise. The reason that this was created by the state is, quote, to provide for the conservation of water and air resources and to maintain for the citizens of the state a total environment of superior quality, recognizing that the water and air resources of the state belong to the people. The General Assembly affirms the state's ultimate responsibility for the preservation and development of these resources in the best interest of all its citizens, and declares the prudent utilization of these resources to be essential to the general welfare think that says it perfectly. So please, thank you again for listening to us. I hope you'll make the right decision and respect what you've heard from the voice of this community tonight. Thank you.
My name is Mark Farrell. I'm a senior at Southern Elements High School, which is right up the road. As far as I know, I'm the youngest person to speak tonight. And I'm speaking because this is a problem that affects everybody in this community. I'm the president of Southern Elements Youth and Government Club, which is a bipartisan organization sponsored by the YMCA that deals in parliamentary procedure and local politics. I'm a graduate of this very elementary school that we're standing in right now, and I live with my family on Clark Road, about a mile from where this proposed mine is going to be. All of the drinking water here at this school and our community comes from wells. As a student at Southern, I remember every day coming in from recess, and all the students would line up and drink from the water fountain. I remember playing baseball here, basketball here, and soccer here. All of our water came from the school. If this water was contaminated by sediment or toxic chemicals, it would adversely affect all the young people in our community. Stewardship of our resources is one of the most important duties of the government that we have freely elected. To responsibly protect these for the continued well-being of the community and the future of all of us is a duty of the utmost importance and priority. So I ask you, why then is it okay for a company that we know nothing about to come in and poison the people of this community? Thank you and have a good night.
Hello, thank you for granting this public hearing. I'm Emily Sutton. I'm the Haw River Keeper of Haw River Assembly. I represent over 1,000 members in the Haw River watershed. This project borders two streams, both tributaries to Cane Creek. Cane Creek then flows into the Haw and Jordan Lake, both impaired waterways. In preliminary stream evaluations, these tributaries are both exceptionally healthy. Reedy Branch tributary has high dissolved oxygen and provides habitat for pollution-sensitive aquatic life. Cane Creek is also fed by many tributaries that are impacted by industrial poultry operations, and these high-quality streams are critical for the dilution of nutrients and bacteria, increasing dissolved oxygen and lowering the pH. Aggregate mining would increase sedimentation and turbidity and nutrient loads into these streams. This project should be subject to a thorough environmental impact study by a third party. The existing permit application states that no chemicals will be used on site, yet in aggregate mining, drills are often coated with lubricants to install explosives into the surrounding rock. These lubricants can often contain chemicals that are not regulated by federal or state standards and may not be removed in traditional drinking water treatment. The heavy metals from machinery, traffic, and explosives will likely remain in discharged stormwater from the settling ponds and dewatering process. These heavy metals could impact the groundwater aquifer or downstream drinking water utilities, which would pay for costly infiltration. This project should require an individual NPDES permit rather than a general permit. This permit application allows for 500,000 gallons per day withdrawal, but has capacity for only 200,000 gallons per day for settling sediment from the gravel cleaning process. The dewatering permit does not have a numeric volume limit for discharge, and the project permit states that the water will be discharged as needed. This project puts stream health and water quality at risk, and we encourage the state and county to thoroughly evaluate the environmental risks associated with this project, require a third-party environmental impact study, and if approved, demand the most protective permitting requirements for this project. Thank you.
Jane Alfie. I live at 7561 South Brook Lane here in Snow Camp. My property, my family's property, borders the Atlantic Creek that will pass through the aggregate site. My family and I have lived in this community for 22 years. I'm not going to beat everything that's already been said over again, because I know everybody's probably getting ready, tired, and wants to go home. But I do want to say, I did speak to a gentleman who owns a well and septic company that lives in our area, and I did ask him, is this going to affect our wells? And his answer to me was absolutely. He said there's no way it cannot affect our wells. My other question regarding wells is what becomes of our water quality? Who tests who's responsible for it? We're not, as we said before, on city water. Who takes that responsibility? My creek, I call it my creek because a lot of it goes down along our property, has a habit of flooding. When, with the weather being unpredictable as it is here, it will flood and will flood up to a quarter of an acre of our field and property. What happens when that water overflows and floods my land and my property and causes even more erosion? The pipeline, we live within feet of the pipeline. I can walk to the pipeline within seconds from my front door. My biggest issue, though, is I have asthma. I've had asthma my whole life. And I was also diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2016. I think I speak for everyone that has a chronic illness and a chronic breathing illness. The air quality is going to be impacted, no matter what assurances we get. We know it will be impacted. I currently use steroidal inhalers twice daily and a rescue inhaler throughout the day. The increase in the dust and the airborne particles will obviously cause a worsening of my pulmonary health. The inability to clear my airways often leads to respiratory infections. My MS medicine also lowers my white blood cells, which adds to that inability to fight infections effectively. When I get an infection, it leaves me vulnerable to an MS exacerbation. So what happens then is I may lose my sight. I've already lost a lot of sight in my life. I really can't afford to lose any more sight. It affects my walk, the way I walk, the way I talk, and the way I think. With every infection, the chances of these MS attacks go up. I'm asking you to please make the right decision and please say no to this poem.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here today. My question is, between and number 9, and we have so many in North Carolina already. That's one question. The other question is, who's this company? They form in Wyoming, and they have no ties here. You do not have our best interest at heart. Harming our wildlife and water with this type of mighty flood risk of pollutants in the water and in the air. Creating pits or quarries require removal of virtually all natural vegetation, topsoil, subsoil to reach the aggregate underneath. Not only does this lead to loss of existing animal and wildlife, it leads to a huge loss of biodiversity as plant and aquatic habitats are destroyed. Moreover, the adjacent ecosystems are affected. Noise, dust, pollution, and contaminated water. Another potential is the loss and fragmentation of the continuous natural environment, which will make it difficult for wildlife to move from one ecosystem to another. Not to mention the increase of heavy equipment coming in and out of the community that's not even equipped to handle this. This mine is also will be located in a petroleum pipeline and transports jet fuel, gasoline, kerosene. I'm a former airport crew chief. I worked with jet fuel, and I'll tell you what, it don't take much to set that off. Risk of lasting petroleum spills will have long-term negative impacts with our community long after the company's gone. This site is also located from the snow camp right across from the Snow Camp Solar Farm. All the blasting, dust particles will cover these panels, and it will reduce the effectiveness of this farm. Not to mention the power lines that are located going across this property. How do we know that this blasting is not going to affect those high tension wires? Finally, the school is located here. We have many businesses here already that have come up with spokes. We have a winery, farmers, private residents who will lose their right to enjoy their property because of the nuisance caused by low blasting and air pollution. Let's put it this way. We can't be a community if we don't have our water. And you're not wanted here.
Well, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard, because that's really the question here. Will our voices be heard? CFR 1926.1153. That's the OSHA regulation for silicon dust. I'm very curious and somewhat baffled as to why there's not been an EIS for this project, why the permit does not have environmental impact statement, why there isn't a groundwater study completed, why we don't have a geological study completed, but a permit has been issued. Now, I'm a bit of a neophyte in this process because I found out about it about 3 weeks ago. I haven't had much time to do my own research. I'm thankful for all those in this room that have. I live next door to Chris and Amanda Dixon. Their son, with asthma, used to mow my grass. Now, if anybody's driven by my home, you know that's a challenge. All right? I agree with everything that's been said here. I'm not against a person making a dollar, okay? But I'm against a community losing its happiness, its livelihood, its security, its water, and its air quality for that dollar. I appreciate your time, and again, then the new question is, will we be heard? Thank you.
All right, last. I better do well here. Hi, my name is Sarah Stevens. I am a resident here at Snow Camp. Luckily, I talk really loudly, so hopefully y'all can hear me anyway. And I just want to talk about the impact to the ecosystem, both locally and statewide. So I'm going to go big, and I'm going to talk about things small and why they're important. The Reedy Branch Stream that borders the east side of the proposed site is spring-fed from groundwater that flows directly into Cane Creek and subsequently the Hall River. Stormwater contains sediment and chemical contaminants can enter the stream at its origin, adversely impacting the downstream ecological systems. This negative impact is not just the Snow Camp community and our local waterways, but these waterways feed the Hall River, which is part of the Cape Fear watershed. Endemic species, migratory birds, butterflies, bees, native plants, and a myriad of wildlife rely on this ecosystem. Disruptions to the ecosystem impacts us from traveler tourism to farmers and fishermen. The Cape Fear River Basin is home to 95 species of commercial and recreational fish. Estuaries, blackwater rivers, and rocky streams in the basin support 42 rare aquatic species. Additionally, the Cape Fear River Basin is home to 27 endangered plant species and some notable endangered species like the Cape Fear shiner, the yellow lamp mussel, and the bald eagle. They all rely on the river for their habitat. The Cape Fear shiner, a fish that's federally listed as endangered, has been found nowhere in the world except the Cape Fear River Basin. The yellow lamp mussel is in the state endangered list and is partially responsible for modifying their aquatic habitat for themselves and other organisms. Other endangered species that should be included here too is the short-nosed sturgeon, the red-cockaded woodpecker, and the St. Francis satyr, just to name a few. Why does this matter? Why do we care? It impacts the ecosystem that includes nutrient cycling. That's the decomposition of organic matter into inorganic nutrients. Water cycling. This supports plant growth that makes all life possible. and biological diversity. The disruption of the food chain may occur and predators may become extinct or even disappear. This impact can cause changes in vegetation, wildfires, infectious diseases, and invasive species. And finally, the impact of flooding that not only destroys our personal property and the land, but it negatively impacts farmers, ranchers, and others that rely on the ecosystem to make a living and supply us with food. It also impacts all aquatic life, which may or may not recover. As you can see, the potential impact to the state is far-reaching. The company has not provided adequate documentation to mitigate future issues caused by the mine. These issues will not only affect us today, but for generations to come. The delicate ecosystem of the Cape Fear River Basin, including our rivers and streams, must remain protected.
I'd like to thank everyone for attending this public hearing tonight and for the important comments and questions raised. The department will review the items presented tonight as related to General Statute 74-51 of the Mining Act of 1971. The proceedings of this public hearing will remain open for a period of 10 days from tonight until December 17, 2018 for the filing of additional written comments to be included in the official hearing summary I will prepare for the interim director of the Division of Energy, Mineral, and Land Resources. Please send any written comments to me at the following address. I'm Dr. Kenneth B. Taylor. I'm the Section Chief of the North Carolina Geological Survey. The address is 1612 Mail Service Center, Raleigh, NC, 27699-1612. I'll repeat it for you. I'm the State Geologist of North Carolina. I'm the Section Chief of the Geological Survey, and it's in 1612 Mail Service Center, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27699-1612. Please note that even though the public hearing summary will close on December 17th, the department will continue to accept written public comments on this application throughout the application review process until a decision is made. Okay? Are there any questions? If not, it's... Okay, there are questions, yes. Okay. Is there no one here Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Their side. The company has chosen not to speak. That's it. That's it. So the whole thing about it is, it's now 9:47, and this hearing is closed.